The field looked like a mistake. For 3 years, nothing useful had grown there. No corn, no wheat, no vegetables. Just tall golden weeds swaying across 6 acres of abandoned ground. Most farmers in Mercy Creek wouldn't even walk through it. Mara Whitaker paid $5 for the entire field. The man selling it laughed when she handed him the money. "You actually want this?" Mara nodded. "Yes. There's nothing there." "I know." He looked at the weeds. "They're not even good weeds." Mara smiled. "Give me a week." He laughed harder. "You planning to eat them?" "No." "Then what?" Mara picked up one of the long, stiff stalks. "I'm going to make something." Mara was 31, a single mother raising 2 children while running a small farm outside town. Money was always tight. She grew vegetables, kept chickens, and sold handmade farm products at the weekend market. But she was constantly looking for ways to make use of what other people ignored. One autumn afternoon, she noticed something strange about the abandoned field. The weeds weren't soft. They had long, stiff stems. When dried, they became surprisingly rigid. Mara bent one. It snapped cleanly. She picked up another. This one flexed without breaking. She carried a bundle home. Nathan Briggs, her farm manager, watched her walk into the barn. "What are those?" "Weeds." "I can see that." "Can you?" Nathan frowned. Mara handed him a stalk. "Try breaking it." He bent it. The stalk flexed, then returned to its original shape. Nathan looked at her. "That's unusual." "I thought so." Mara started researching. She discovered that similar grasses had been used historically for household brushes and brooms. But modern mass production had nearly eliminated small-scale broom making. Most cheap brooms were made from imported materials or synthetic fibers. Mara wondered whether her field could produce a natural alternative. She didn't have a factory. She didn't have expensive machinery. She had weeds. And $5. So she experimented. The first broom was terrible. It looked more like a bundle of straw tied to a stick. Mara swept the barn floor. The fibers scattered everywhere. Nathan laughed. "That's not a broom." Mara looked at the mess. "No, that's a failed broom." "Correct." She picked up the scattered stalks. "Now we know what doesn't work." She changed the drying process. The stalks were harvested at different stages. Some were too brittle. Others were too soft. Mara discovered that the strongest stems needed to be cut at a specific stage and dried slowly under ventilation. She experimented with bundling, then trimming, then binding. She tried cotton cord. It loosened. She tried wire. Too stiff. Finally, she found a strong natural twine that held the bundle securely. Then came the handle. Mara used straight maple branches from trees on the property. She sanded them smooth, sealed them with natural oil, attached the dried fibers. The fourth prototype looked like an actual broom. Nathan swept the barn floor. Dust disappeared. Hay moved easily. He stopped. "Okay." Mara smiled. "Okay, what?" "That's a broom." The next problem was durability. Mara didn't want to sell something that looked handmade but fell apart after a week. So she tested them. She swept concrete, wood, dirt, barn floors, porch boards. She dragged each broom through piles of leaves. She used the same broom repeatedly. After weeks, the fibers remained intact. Mara realized she might have something, but she needed more material. The field had plenty, 6 acres of it. Harvesting the weeds became a process. Mara and Nathan cut the mature stalks during dry weather. They bundled them, transported them to a covered drying shed. Then they sorted every bundle by length and stiffness. The strongest stalks became broom heads. Shorter pieces became smaller hand brushes. Damaged material became mulch. Nothing was wasted. Lily helped with sorting. She held up a bundle. "This one." Mara examined it. "Too short." Lily put it aside. "What about this?" "Perfect." Lily smiled. "I'm good at this." "You are." The first 10 brooms went to the farmer's market. Mara didn't expect much. She placed them beside her vegetables. The brooms looked simple, natural, handmade. Each had a wooden handle and tightly bound golden fibers. A woman picked one up. "How much?" Mara gave her the price. The woman bought it. Then another customer asked. Then another. By lunchtime, all 10 were gone. Mara stared at the empty stand. Nathan laughed. "You sold everyone." "I know. Make more." The next weekend, Mara brought 30. They sold out faster. A store owner approached her. "Do you make these yourself?" "Yes." "How many can you produce?" Mara hesitated. "How many do you need?" The owner smiled. 200. Mara's eyes widened. 200. Monthly. Mara glanced at Nathan. He looked equally shocked. The store owner continued. My customers like local products. Mara nodded. I can probably do it. Then the story spread. A home and garden shop called. Then a farm supply store. Then a tourist shop near the highway. Everyone wanted the natural brooms. But there was a problem. Mara could barely make 30 a week. The demand was suddenly far greater than her production. She needed equipment, more drying space, more workers, and better harvesting methods. She went back to the field. 6 acres of worthless weeds swayed in the wind. Mara smiled. The man who sold her the land had been right about one thing. There had been nothing there. Nothing he understood. But now Mara saw something different. Raw material, a renewable crop, and potentially a business. She began mapping the field. Certain sections produced longer stalks. Others produced stronger fibers. She marked them. Instead of harvesting everything at once, she created rotation zones. That way, the field could regenerate naturally. She didn't want to destroy the resource that had created the opportunity. Then she discovered another use. The shorter fibers made excellent scrub brushes. Small bundles could become dish brushes. Longer fibers became 4 brooms. The strongest stalks became heavy-duty outdoor brooms. Mara wasn't growing one product anymore. She was developing a whole line. But the biggest order hadn't arrived yet. One Monday morning, a delivery truck stopped outside her barn. A woman in a business suit stepped out. She introduced herself as the purchasing manager for a regional chain of country stores. She had seen Mara's brooms. We'd like to discuss carrying them. Mara wiped her hands on her apron. How many stores? The woman smiled. 42. Mara's stomach tightened. And how many brooms? That's what we're here to discuss. Mara looked across the barn at the stacks of unfinished broom heads. For the first time, she understood the real problem. The field wasn't the challenge anymore. Keeping up with demand was. The purchasing manager placed a document on Mara's workbench. We'd like to start with 1,200 brooms. Mara stared at her. 1,200. Across 42 stores. Nathan nearly dropped the bundle he was carrying. Mara slowly shook her head. I can't make that many. The woman nodded. We expected you to say that. She pointed toward the field outside. That's why we're willing to give you 6 months. Mara looked at the document again. 6 months. 1,200 brooms. It sounded impossible. But it wasn't the size of the order that worried her. It was whether she could scale the process without ruining what made the brooms special. Mara didn't want a factory producing identical plastic-looking brooms. The whole appeal was that they were made from a natural material grown locally. So she designed a small production system instead. She hired 4 people from town. 2 handled harvesting. 1 managed drying and sorting. Another helped with assembly and finishing. Nathan redesigned the barn into a proper workshop. They built raised drying racks, installed ventilation, added a small cutting machine, built work tables, and organized the 6-acre field into harvesting zones. The operation remained surprisingly simple. Grow, cut, dry, sort, bundle, bind, finish, pack. But every stage had to be consistent. The first large batch exposed problems immediately. Some broom heads were too dense. Others were too loose. A few handles cracked. Several bundles weren't dried enough. Mara refused to ship them. Nathan looked at the rejected pile. That's hundreds of dollars. Mara nodded. I know. Maybe nobody would notice. Mara looked at him. I would. He nodded. Fair. They reworked the process. Moisture was measured before fibers entered production. Handles were inspected. Bundles were weighed. Every broom was stress tested. The rejected material wasn't wasted. It became mulch, kindling, or smaller brushes. By the end of the 3rd month, production had stabilized. The workers could make dozens of brooms each day. The quality remained high, and customers kept ordering. The 42-store chain placed a 2nd order, then a 3rd. A regional hotel group contacted Mara. They wanted outdoor brooms for their properties. A landscaping company wanted heavy-duty versions. A farm supply distributor wanted the scrub brushes. The little business had become much larger than Mara expected. Then something unexpected happened. The original field began producing differently. After several years of repeated harvesting, Mara noticed that some sections were becoming less vigorous. She called Laura Jensen, the agricultural specialist who had advised her before. Laura walked the field. You've been harvesting too aggressively. Mara frowned. I thought I was rotating. You are. Laura pointed toward one section. But the soil needs more recovery time. Mara immediately changed the system. Some zones were rested completely. Others were harvested lightly. Mara planted cover crops between cycles. She returned compost to the field. She stopped thinking of the weeds as an endless supply. They were a crop, and crops needed management. That decision protected the business. Instead of maximizing production for one season, Mara created a sustainable harvesting schedule. The field regenerated. The stalks returned. And the quality improved. The buyers didn't notice the difference. They only noticed that the brooms remained consistent. One afternoon, Earl Dawson stopped by. He walked through the workshop. Rows of finished brooms stood against the wall. Each had a smooth wooden handle and tightly bound golden fibers. A shipment was being loaded into a truck. Earl looked at the boxes. How many? Mara smiled. 800 going out today. He stared. 800. Yep. He shook his head. From that field. From that field. Earl laughed. I remember when I told you those weeds weren't worth anything. Mara smiled. You did. And now. She handed him a broom. Try it. Earl swept the workshop floor. Dust and loose straw moved cleanly into a pile. He looked at the broom. That's actually good. Mara laughed. That's the idea. The business continued growing. Mara eventually gave the product line a name, Mercy Creek Brooms. She didn't trademark some complicated slogan. She kept the branding simple. Local material. Hand-finished. Built to last. The story became part of the product. Customers liked knowing that the fibers had been grown in the same county where the brooms were made. Farmers liked the fact that the field required little intervention compared with traditional crops. And Mara liked that the land was earning money without needing expensive irrigation or chemical inputs. 3 years after she bought the field for $5, Mara stood at its edge. The golden stalks moved in the afternoon wind. The field no longer looked abandoned. It was managed, harvested, rotated, rested, and valuable. Nathan walked up beside her. Do you ever think about selling it? Mara laughed. Absolutely not. Why? She looked across the field. Because it's not a field anymore. What is it? Mara smiled. A supply chain. The company eventually supplied stores across several states. Mara employed more than a dozen people. The original 6 acres remained the heart of the operation. She added another small field when demand increased, but she never abandoned the original plot. The first $5 purchase had become a reminder of where everything started. She even kept the original handwritten land receipt. $5. A neglected field. A few strange weeds. And an idea. One Saturday, Lily walked through the workshop carrying a finished broom. She was older now and had grown up watching the business develop. Mom. Yeah. Can I try it? Mara smiled. Go ahead. Lily swept the concrete floor. The broom moved smoothly across the surface. Works. Mara laughed. That's what they tell me. Lily looked toward the field. Did people really think those weeds were worthless? Most of them. Why? Mara thought about it. Because they only looked at what the weeds were. Lily waited. Mara continued. They didn't ask what they could become. That became the lesson Mara carried into every part of her business. The field wasn't valuable because someone finally decided it was valuable. The field had always contained useful material. The difference was that nobody had found the right use for it. Mara didn't discover gold underground. She discovered value growing above it. And the same neighbors who had once laughed at her $5 purchase eventually began calling her for advice. Some wanted to start their own broom businesses. Others wanted to know how to grow the grass. Some simply wanted to buy her products. Mara helped when she could, but she always warned them. Don't copy the field. Copy the thinking. Look at what your land produces naturally. Look at what everyone else ignores. Find the material that costs you almost nothing. Then figure out what someone else might actually pay for. Years later, Mara still walked through the original field every autumn. She would pick up one dried stalk, bend it, feel its strength, then smile.